Pancake robot is coming to town. He's mixing up the batter and he's laying it down.
One of my favorite robot songs is Pancake Robot. So if you're so
Robot.
inclined, go look up Pancake Robot.
Are we going to hear any of these? Is this a little highlight for Jeff's trivia?
I don't know. The answer to all my questions, the answer will be Pancake Robot.
Yeah, right.
And we'll see how I do.
Okay. All right. Thanks everyone for joining our final informational session anyway. Following this at 5 o'clock, we do have our happy hour is hosted by RPI or Jeff House. Should be fun. He's been doing some internal trivia for us at RPI every Friday since the COVID season started. So I think it should be a lot of fun. Our topic today is discussing how you can go down the road or begin down the path of digital transformation, and really what digital transformation means or should mean or can mean for you and your organization. And one of the topics that we'll be talking about alongside digital transformation, or goes hand in hand with it, is the idea of automation, and specifically robotic process automation, or RPA. Got to flip back and forth between the deck here. So we do have some upcoming webinars. So we do webinar Wednesdays, first Wednesday of every month here in the content and process automation practice. June's webinar Wednesday is focused around Kofax products. So there's a new program for migrating to total agility. Also, there's a process director webinar, which no one here is going to care about because that's for SAP. In July, we have two webinars. The first is upgrading to Perceptive Content Enhancement Pack 2, which is soon to be released, not quite out yet. And then the second is the first presentation from this track, which is making on-base work with Infor. We are doing something kind of fun and introducing each other. Michael, Director of Infor Services, joined RPI pretty recently by RPI standards, but has been working with Infor Lawson since 2000. He's an experienced IT leader in healthcare. He is known, he's famous outside of RPI, and we are lucky to have him as the Tech Pro Unicorn, running a blog and podcast, and I don't know exactly what else, but a lot of information for business technology and digital transformation. And is a football coach, family guy, DJ, party bike captain, which sounds a lot of fun.
Awesome. John has been here, obviously, longer than me, is in our solution delivery practice, which is a very exciting portion of the business, and a lot of our Infor customers might not be familiar with it. And John's a great contact to guide you through that world. So John leads our content and process automation practice, which is kind of a kludgy name for some of the projects that we have. And some of you might think AP automation, and maybe John and his team have helped you with that. But John also leads a team really focused around some of the stuff that we're going to talk about today, which are more around the robotic process automation piece. So always cool to have John. John's also been a member of the podcast, so there's a podcast episode out there with John. The business process automation background of 10 years is key, right? So he used to do it with sticks and rocks and
In the Stone Age, right?
Yeah, way back when. So he's been doing it for a while, and now has some cool tools to help him do it more efficiently. And a proud father of a 14-year-old, 14-month-old.
Yeah, thankfully not there yet. I have a ways to go.
That's right. It's awesome. This is just a quick slide. Again, we're giving away unicorns. Julia got one with answer to Rosie. I'm looking for a caption for this photo in particular. So if you want to caption that photo, just a catchy little saying, what does that photo make you think of? Throw it into the chat, or send it in an email to me to mgrace@rpic.com. And the coolest caption will get the first of a series of 50 of which we're already almost out of RPI uniform.
Awesome. So, with this platform, we're really looking for you to help us guide this presentation and collaborate with each other, with us. So we would like to hear in the chat who's here, what company or organization you're with, what your title is, or your role is. And then question we have for you is, what is one process or document or task or whatnot that you wish you could automate that's related to Infor? Or if you can't think of something related to Infor, even just within your life. I know one thing that I did recently, just as sort of anecdotally, I had missed a couple emails from a client, and I wanted to set up something that sent me an extra push notification on my phone when I got an email from certain people or from certain organizations. And so I spent about an hour inside Microsoft Power Automate, which was included with our Office 365 subscription, and set it up to send myself an extra push notification, which has been hugely beneficial. But that's just an example of something very small, just a notification, not even really doing much. Hi, Bob. Thanks for joining us. Looking to automate AP invoicing, definitely interested in what other areas of Boston are good candidates for RPA. Excellent. So AP automation is a fantastic starting point for jumping into digital transformation. It's something that's very repeatable. We've done it so much. There are so many great products available that it has a lot of great case studies and success stories. Robotic process automation could just be a part of that. So for example, one tool that we've built is when a new vendor request enters your workflow. We take that document and search online across a number of websites for things like tax exemption. We look at the IRS for information regarding that vendor. We Google them just to see if there's an alternate spelling or there could be any confusion. Really just looking for the validity, whether there's any exceptions in the OIG, that kind of thing, just to see the validity of that vendor before we even present it in front of a user. Gather up all that information, screenshots of the websites or links, whatever, put it in front of the vendor team within the accounts payable department. And so we've eliminated 5-10 minutes of work that they would do before they even get that record.
Well, one of the areas at Dignity that we focused on, right, so very similar to like a Mercy Health, I'd say all back office is game. So we started a team, and I'm happy to share what that looked like. And we did some stuff in payroll, which was more around reducing risk, right? Not necessarily trying to reduce FTEs, and we'll talk about that. But we did a lot of automation in payroll around reducing risk, around tax payments. We did some AP and finance stuff. We did some stuff in general ledger around recurring entries. We were hot and heavy in HR around the transition of employees from candidates to actual employees. We were looking at all the processes in our HR service center and really focused on trying to make that faster and more efficient for the folks that work there, and really to take the mundane work out of that and provide automation. So lots of areas, anything back office is game.
Yeah, HR, very data entry heavy, very paper heavy frequently. Great candidate.
Yeah. I'd say the worst one that we did is we automated the first process. I'll share the dirty laundry there, but the first process that we used a robot for was the termination process. I don't recommend ever doing that because that became the most efficient process that we had because a robot was doing it. So you were separated in record time, and so we said, great, we have robots terminating humans, and that's our first RPA process. Probably not super smart, but that's what we did.
Yeah, that's a scary one. Nobody wants to be terminated by a robot, literally or figuratively. So thank you. That was some great feedback. We're gonna carry on. We have a few main topics. So the first is really our definition and the industry definition of digital transformation, and is it a buzzword or buzz term, or does it actually carry some real weight? We'll discuss some of the terminology or concepts that fall underneath digital transformation, like RPA. We'll discuss some specific product solutions that we deliver on, that we recommend, that we like, and then we'll discuss some strategies about how you can begin your journey down the path to digital transformation. So, Michael, what is digital transformation?
I love it, right? Because it's a lot of noise out there. You hear it. It's everybody's favorite buzzword. And, we went out and searched from the enterprise project a factual, official, if you will, definition. And then we really realized that, everyone kind of defines it differently. And some people, it gets even more kludgy when you start talking about artificial intelligence. But so we did the cool thing of saying, John, what do you think it means? And Michael, what do you think it means? And I really think it means any movement towards adopting evolving technologies that empower the business processes, resulting in efficiencies and lower cost. John, what do you think?
So I think in its simplest form, it's really leveraging technology to stay competitive. And that's really what it is. If you aren't doing it, somebody else is. There's a reason why startups who are, going from ground up in a digital world are able to disrupt entire industries. And, competitive isn't just for revenue. Competitive can be for vendor discounts. Competitive can be for employees. If your hiring process is too slow, there's a risk that candidate gets pulled out from under you by someone who is faster. They will take the offer that comes to them the quickest, often, even if yours is better. So competition is really, another way to put it is relevancy. So I think there are a lot of different components. This isn't exhaustive, nor is it necessarily meant that you have to do all of these as part of a digital transformation journey. Workflow, content automation, process automation, a lot of these are kind of wrapped up together. There are a lot of traditional systems that accommodate these kind of things and while they may have not really been present in Infor in the version 9, version 10 world, you're starting to see more of these built in Cloud Suite. And that's really just as simple as making sure your workflows stay digital. If an invoice arrives to your organization in an email, that should be ingested digitally, it should be processed digitally, and it should be archived digitally. You would be surprised the number of organizations that receive an email and they print it out and then they hand key it into a system and then they stick it in a filing cabinet. We encounter those all the time, and it's just wild. Desktop automation, and this also goes hand in hand with the robotic process automation. Desktop automation is a lot of how we automate user interaction with software. It's not always something that can be scripted around, or other softwares can't always fill this role, where you actually need to interact with softwares the same way a user does. And that's absolutely possible, especially for legacy systems that don't have any other way, like a green screen or a mainframe application. Desktop automation allows us to build an API. Machine learning, chatbots, and artificial intelligence are sort of concepts within. They are products and components, but they're also concepts within or components of digital transformation. And so we're going to talk a little bit more about those later on in the presentation.
Awesome. Some of the outcomes, and I think when we think about automation technologies, we are focused on how do we do more with less, right? How do we maybe reduce the reliance on FTEs, where we're not having to add more people, or it's cost driven, it's financial. When you start, I caution you, when you start an RPA practice or an automation practice, people are going to assume that you're going to lower cost, and their assumption is you're going to reduce FTEs, and that obviously is possible, and there's more of an art around that, right? Because that's also the fear of people. So when you go into an HR area and say, oh, we're here to do some automation, right? They're fearful for their jobs. So you need to, from a change management perspective, be cognizant of that. And so the financial outcomes, right now we're starting to see a lot of business continuity coming up with automation. We did a session earlier, and what we found is, lots of people are unemployed, lots of lower level positions are unemployed. And in this 2-month period, not all those positions are going to come back, right? Because businesses use the opportunity to look at automation and digital labor as a way to fill those positions. So they might not be bringing back as many people as you might think. Oftentimes, right, you might pursue automation for other reasons besides the financial outcomes. You might be trying to reduce risk. What's the penalty if you don't pay your payroll taxes on time, right? There's a lot of risk there. Or if you don't complete things in compliance with rules and regulations. Those are things that you want to look for also to automate that might not have a huge financial benefit, but they're more risk and compliance based. I always jokingly say, look for the angry people. So it becomes a quality of life issue, right? Where you have people that are miserable in their jobs, or they hate doing this process. When you say, explain the process, and they're like, oh, I hate this. I have to do these 63 steps and it's miserable and it takes me forever, right? That's a great opportunity to interject automation that might just be to make their lives a lot better and make them a more engaged employee. And then obviously, robots don't make mistakes unless you program them to do so. So they can't make mistakes, right? People go, well, what if the robot messes up? The robot only knows what you told the robot to do. So the robot can't mess up unless you messed up setting up the robot. So quality of work generally improves. There is no fat fingering and such. It all kind of gets better.
Absolutely. And to expand a little bit more on the business continuity discussion, obviously this is extremely relevant right now, but it really should be something that you're considering not just an immediate problem, but always a potential problem. We have no idea what could happen down the road, whether it's an earthquake or a pandemic or regulations or anything that can impact the ability for you to continue doing business the way you are today. So what the digital transformation addressing this now allows us to do is help with or assist with the automation of tasks. So if employees can't get to something, pieces can keep moving, wheels can keep turning in the machine. Moving functions to the cloud or off-site allow you to remove some tasks from your team. For example, check printing, which we have a solution for where we'll take your check extract out of Infor and send it over the internet to a check printing company. Allows you to focus activity within organizations, and so even if there is on-site work or hands-on work required, it can be specialized and allows those people to stay working just within their own specific tasks. So you don't need the entire accounts payable department to come into the office to do a check run. It provides for remote work tools so that, again, workers can do this from anywhere, whether it's their home or from the coffee shop, or even from a different place within your work site. And of course, self-service capabilities for employees, such as within HR, that they can have access to payroll or HR information without needing a generalist to assist them. Okay, so what's the bottom line?
That's, John and I were talking, we had different ways to say this, but essentially, movement to digital transformation and automation is no longer a competitive advantage. It's really a strategic imperative or a competitive necessity, primarily because your competitors are doing it. Right? They're across all industries, folks are reducing costs, outsourcing to automation or digital work. And so you have to do it. Startup companies that are entering your industry, it's built into their DNA. They don't have to adapt legacy processes with automation. That's just how they think, and that's how it's designed. So they have less cost, obviously, because they're leveraging digital labor. The problem that people have is you don't have these people, because if you did, you'd be paying them about $250 an hour. That's kind of what those developers at the big software companies like Blue Prism or Automation Anywhere or such are making. So you don't have them. So how do you get started, right? And we'll talk about that. We'll talk about finding a partner to help you get started, and how do you grow your own automation practice or innovation practice. And there's a lot of different roles than perhaps you've historically thought of. And there's a lot of roles that are involved. So really, the first 6 months, you agree to make the investment, you partner with somebody, and it's kind of outsourced, right? A partner comes in, they're doing a lot of the work. You're watching, you're learning, you're observing, you're implementing, you're doing change management. Next 6 months, it becomes a bit of a hybrid. They're still heavily engaged, but now you've trained up some people, what I call upskilled. You've upskilled some of your stars, and you've trained them in the software. You've partnered them with consulting to help them learn. And then, after a year, you're primarily in the driver's seat. You're doing a lot of it. And then the consulting team is just assisting.
Absolutely. So there's a lot of components to to the technologies and the software products, et cetera, that are part of digital transformation. So whether it's RPA or AI or machine learning or whatever, we're going to talk through a few of these. So the first and probably most used term is artificial intelligence, or AI. So what is artificial intelligence? The definition is machines mimicking human cognitive function. I think that this is simultaneously too broad and too narrow. It does describe what artificial intelligence is, but most frequently, once you can really nail down some specific artificial intelligence activities, it gets named something else. So like machine learning is considered a subset of artificial intelligence, but people don't really refer to machine learning as artificial intelligence. They refer to it as machine learning. So artificial intelligence is kind of an umbrella. However, I do think that there are some things that fall under it that we really think of as artificial intelligence. I think the best example of that is natural language processing. So the ability to speak, in phrases and sentences and ask questions that are interpreted by a computer and it returns to you with relevant conversation style information. Obviously, the best example of this is something like Alexa or Siri or what have you. And you might think of these as just being those, but practically every platform is trying to work in natural language processing in some fashion into their offerings. And it's absolutely something that could be adopted as part of an enterprise strategy. Machine learning is another example. We use machine learning very frequently. So machine learning is pattern recognition. So the idea is that you're feeding large amounts of data into the machine, and it is identifying patterns, it's identifying relevant data, and more importantly, identifying what is not relevant. It is basically, as time goes on, improving its ability to process more. So since it does typically require large amounts of data, that doesn't mean, or it means that machine learning isn't necessarily applicable to every situation. For something like, this is why we usually talk about it with invoice processing, because you have tons of increasing volumes of invoice documents entering your organization. And they're semi-structured, there's certain patterns that can be looked out for. And that is used in combination with optical character recognition. That is another technology that scrapes the data off the page and then puts the data through the machine learning engine to actually understand what it is that we have. There's different types of machine learning, and there's more than what I've listed here. It gets pretty nitty gritty, but the two main types are supervised and unsupervised. And different platforms that offer machine learning may actually be significantly different, because some are supervised learning and some are unsupervised. So unsupervised is exactly what it sounds like. You don't have to tell the engine on a case-by-case basis what it should be learning. It's going to be attempting to do it itself. Whereas supervised learning, and there's pros and cons to both approaches, but supervised learning is where you are telling the machine what it should be learning, and from there on, it carries its lessons forward. And then there's robotic process automation.
There is. So I saw in the chat, we had a great question, right? Is M4 process automation, is that robotic process automation? And I'm going to say yes, no, sort of, kind of. It's a good start, right? When you think about process automation, robotic process automation, it's just that, right? We're trying to automate a business process as much as possible from end to end. So you add robotic to it, right? And people have said, oh, that's just screen scraping. Well, yes, no, kinda. Is it IPA? So Infor is developing a product called Coleman. RPA built into Coleman is part of their vision. There's 5 legs to the Coleman stool, and they're on number 2, which is not RPA. I always say RPA is a great tool to sit outside of any other application, because then it can be over all applications, right? So it can be your automation engine. ServiceNow has like an RPA tool. It's not your walking, talking type of robots. I love this slide because it talks about what it can do. Oftentimes when we come in for automation, they go, Michael, this process is really competitive, complex. It involves, opening emails and, all kinds of third-party applications. Some are cloud-based, some are on-prem. You gotta log into them. Then we gotta wait for this thing to come back from this other company, and then we gotta read that, and then we gotta, so there's just no way that you could help us automate that. And I kind of sit there and go, okay, nothing that you said can we not do. It can't make decisions like, do I like John's jacket today? And if so, then I'm going to go do something. It can't really do that, right? It's not cognitive, but it can take a defined process, think fishbone diagram, and it can execute it across all systems, including your Microsoft suite, cloud-based applications. It can do external calculations. You can embed code into it to run like a little subroutine, if you will, within it. So lots of providers in the space, Blue Prism, Automation Anywhere, Kofax has an RPA product. This is the hot area of automation right now, and one to really watch. And there's ways that you can keep finding out more. And I think John's going to walk us through some of the solutions in the space.
Absolutely. So that's our next section here. So we're going to talk about some specific solution options and product options. This is by far not exhaustive. There are so many, and there are ones that we have experience with that I'm not even talking about because that would take far too long. The ultimate, I think the ultimate thing to keep in mind is that, in my opinion, the best product is the one that's going to be easiest to start with. That doesn't mean that's the product you're going to end with, but it will help you learn and build competency around what these products can do, so that you can begin moving forward. So I think first and foremost, and again along that idea of availability, Microsoft is someone that is almost necessary as part of a full digital transformation of your organization. If you're already using some Microsoft products, then you're already taking the first step, which basically everybody is. Microsoft offers a huge library of AI functions. And so what are those? They have everything from facial recognition to form recognition to OCR, machine learning products. They have AI functions that can detect bad language, right, and automatically redacted out of documents and things like that. So virtually everything. Now, that's not to say that they're always the best at what they do, but as far as a central place for so much that's constantly being developed, it is a humongous library. You have the ability to automate basic to moderate processes in complexity and leverage some robotic process automation with Power Automate. Power Automate used to be called Flow. It is Microsoft's workflow tool, but also automation tool. So I would call it about the equivalent of something like IPA. It's got a drag and drop builder. One of the best parts about it is that it has tons of pre-built integrations, so that if you want to, say, make a call out to Adobe Sign, you have a document that enters your inbox and you want to automatically send it out to Adobe Sign, you can have a drag and drop builder to do all of those actions within Power Automate. And I've been using it personally. I'm a huge proponent of it. And I think, again, it's a great tool to learn with. And if you're already an Office 365 subscriber, you probably already have access to this. Microsoft, also the owner, of course, of their Azure cloud services. So this is everything. This is infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service. We leverage Azure for our yoga products to offer those as a service. It's really cool because, again, it's really easy to take what you're doing within Office and begin leveraging some of those Azure technologies. On the critical side, it often lacks the direct application of more focused products. So, for example, for accounts payable automation, I don't have a Microsoft product that I'm recommending anybody, because what they're providing are more typically tools to do the job and not a focused solution. Oops. Yeah. And sorry, robotic process automation.
Oh, that's okay. So, when you look at the space, I jokingly used to say, everybody suddenly is an RPA vendor, right? And when you ask them, oh, what did you change about your product? And they say, well, nothing. Well, then you're probably not an RPA vendor, really. You probably have automation tools, which are useful. The idea is to automate, right? So don't get hung up on the software or what product you use. The goal is to get processes automated to get to the benefits, right? And along that path, you might use Microsoft tools, you might use RPA tools, you might use some of your ServiceNow components, you might use M4 IPA. The problem comes when you start adding 36 different widgets to automate a process. Now you have a maintenance problem, right? Now you have a governance problem. Because when something changes, you don't know where to go to fix it. So it becomes a problem in the maintenance world. And there's no surefire way to absolutely fail at automation and RPA than not doing the governance piece of this and just deploying a bunch of bots. I have seen a very large healthcare company that might be based in California, that might have health plan members and also be a provider organization, go on a 1-year journey, have literally hundreds of robots deployed, and then stop their program because as things were changing, they had no idea what robots needed updating and what was affecting what, and literally all their processes were breaking. So it's a lack of governance. So don't get hung up so much on the tools, right? Kofax has a product that is really good at automation and integration with documents, right? Because that's where Kofax got their start. They just happen to probably be the industry leader in that space. UiPath, they're awesome at like data recording, right? So think desktop automation. That just happens to be their strength. Blue Prism just happens to be far more enterprise oriented. They're all RPA. They just have different strengths and weaknesses. Automation Anywhere, other than getting a huge Google investment, I haven't really found any use for them. Hopefully there's nobody on here from Automation Anywhere, but and then Microsoft has a product, Power Automate, right? So I always say these are arrows in your quiver. Don't get hung up on what tool we use to solve the problem. What we're trying to do is to solve the problem. Robots are cheap, right? I didn't say this, but I think you can get a Kofax robot to play around with for free. I think if you poke around on their website out there, you can get a Kofax robot for free to start exploring it. As you scale, these things are, between $10,000 and $20,000 production, right? They run 24/7, and one robot can do hundreds of processes. So when you start kind of understanding that, and then you say, oh, wow, it took this process that used to take somebody 15 minutes, and now that's fully automated. Well, how often did they do that process? Oh, they did that, 5 times a day, 5 days a week. Okay, so 25 times a week, and how much did that person make? Oh, they make $60,000 a year. Okay, and I just saved this amount of time. Very quickly, you've paid for your $20,000 robot, and you've used like 2% capacity of that robot. Now you can go, right? Now you're digging for gold here, and can now start deploying it somewhere else and doing other processes. And it doesn't have to be aligned like, oh, this is our HR robot, and this robot only does things in HR. That robot can do something in HR, do something in finance, do something in supply chain, do something in payroll. It can kind of go anywhere. Again, it's just documentation and governance to make sure that you understand what those robots are doing. You want to understand how you're going to scale that. Eventually, you'd like to get to a larger shop of robots and automation. And then, ease of use is often a question. We always get asked, well, I have a really smart subject matter expert in payroll. Can they do robotic process automation? Yes, no, maybe. They can probably do a really easy one, something super simple. They probably can't do really complex multi-system in the cloud, sending email, office integration type of RPA. That's running with flaming scissors. That's probably best leveraged with a consulting partner. So can they do it? Yes, in the beginning. Does it take time to build that skill set internally? Yes. Is it a worthy investment? Absolutely.
Yep. And I think I dropped a slide in here in terms of, I lost it. Oh, wait, we are going to show, so I have a GIF, that's right. And this is actually Kofax RPA. And so this is a pretty typical, this is the designer. This is where you actually build a robot flow. And what you'll see is there's little nodes out on the canvas. And what this one's actually, and those represent individual steps that the robot's been told to do. So it's mostly a drag and drop interface saying, and so what this one's doing is it's taking a single Excel sheet and running through the information in the sheet and splitting into two based on some criteria that's programmed in. I think maybe it's, let's say it's odd numbers and even numbers within a column. And so of note is that it runs through it loops through every row in the Excel, of which there's 1,000 within a couple seconds. And while there might be other tools that can actually perform Excel splitting more effectively and faster, the idea is to illustrate that it can run through and do a task that there are users out there who do manual Excel compilations that take them hours or days, and it can do it in seconds. And Excel is the most basic example. It can do all sorts of integrations, but it is one of the most common. And we're going to talk, we also have just a quick touch on OCR and machine learning. So again, there's tons of other options out there. The two that we are partners with both Kofax and Highland. So in terms of, especially for OCR machine learning, so when we're feeding a document in, again, whether it's an invoice or anything else, and scraping the data off of that page, and improving the capacity that it has to spot relevant information and present it to business users, we typically leverage Kofax Transformation and Highland Brainware. And both of those are components, they're both standalone, but they also are components that can be used with other platforms, primarily their own content management or business process management platforms. So Kofax has the Total Agility platform. And what that's going to do is it's really a workflow platform. For case management, document ingestion and capture, for data entry, for business process automation, has its own interface. And so transformation is just a component of that. Just like Highland's Brainware is a component of both the perceptive platforms and the on-base platforms. All right, so we talked about some of the products that exist. So how do you actually begin? How do you begin on the journey down the path towards digital transformation?
I love our saying at the top, right? Try, fail, repeat. Because that's what's going to happen, right? We could absolutely blow smoke at you and tell you this is going to be perfect out of the gate and it's going to be wonderful. And that's just not how it happens. Not really for anybody, even with the most planning, right? And it's okay. That's what you want to happen because that's growth. So really understand the opportunity, right? We had a question earlier in the session that I thought was great around like, where can we use this, right? Here's what we're doing in AP, but where else is the opportunity? And I would say, anywhere that there's defined processes. So all your back office, right? That is just ample picking grounds. If you're in healthcare, it's your rev cycle, it's registration, right? All that has automation opportunities. That has been woefully underserved for a while. So how do you understand the opportunity specific to your location? You call John and I, and we will come out. I'm going to make another bold statement and say free of charge. And we will do a vision workshop with you for a day, right? We'll meet with your leaders. And in that day, what we'll do is we'll essentially share with you a little bit about specifically what RPA is. We'll help you capture where the opportunity is at a high level at your organization. Then we'll qualify it a little bit, right? Like, what does that financial opportunity kind of look like? And then we'll leave that with you, which really is great input for a business case to say, hey, we need to jump on this automation thing. And, again, I'm going to boldly say we'll do that for free. It's just a one-day investment in our time. Whether you use us and Kofax and not, we'd love that opportunity to just start you on your journey. I think John and I are passionate about automation, and to see people succeed in that, whatever course your organization takes is more important. So determining your appetite, right? What can you afford to do and what can you do now? So trying to not bite off more than you can chew is important. Let's figure out what's achievable this year. Let's budget for and plan for growth for next year, and we can help you with that. And then obviously learning as you're going, right? You're gonna deploy your first robot. My first robot that we deployed in production was at 5% efficiency. Anybody consider 5% effectiveness a pass, right? We did. We celebrated the hell out of that because it took us months to get that robot to 5%, right? We built it, we babied it. These become like your children, right? We deployed it and it worked 5% efficiency, but then we fixed it, we tinkered with it, and it was at 97%, right? So we tried, we failed, we fixed it, we repeated it, and we were far better when we learned. So, John, there's a couple more on there.
So maybe that 5% efficiency would have been considered a failure, but what it allowed you to do was learn the lessons needed to improve and to iterate, and to ultimately, build a solid foundation, and led you to that growth. And so, as you continue through this process, you get better, you get faster at the cycle, you get faster at building. You get faster at failing, and at some point you actually get better at succeeding. And this allows you to begin to scale for yourself, but also you become a resource for your organization. So an important component of beginning this is making sure that there are the people and team, there's a team in place to support this as an initiative, to support digital transformation. And this is not exhaustive, nor is it necessarily that there's one person per role. Sometimes these roles are combined. Sometimes it's multiple people per role. But it is important that you identify, I think, at least these 5 roles and who is shouldering this. So number one, the executive sponsor is somebody who actually has to really provide that leadership to say, this is something that we're doing. We're going to be kicking this off. Maybe they're also responsible for identifying who's fitting into the other roles. And at the end of the day, when it does come time to make an investment, you have to have someone willing to sign the check. Second, the digital transformation lead. So this is going to be the person who understands both the technical nature of what you're trying to achieve, what has been implemented, understands or has documented what opportunities still exist within your organization, understands what exactly is happening to move forward and achieve these goals. Next, I think systems architect. So this is someone who actually has the detail of what is deployed where, and can really design around design using the tools that you have to actually meet the need of the business. This is the person who the business is going to come to when they say something doesn't work very well. Your systems architect is probably going to be the person benefiting most from the try, fail, repeat. And then you have a couple others.
Yep, the partnership with your business, right? I've seen this in a couple different ways. I've seen this being an IT-driven initiative that usually doesn't go very well, right? This is not about an IT project, right? This is automation of a business process, and it's best business-driven. So when we go in, we want to talk to the business leaders. That's the group that we want to understand this. While they're not going to be the ones doing it, they're going to be the ones affected by it, and ultimately the ones funding it. So get the people involved that know the applications and really know the process, so that they can point us to where the areas of automation are. And they will definitely point you to processes that they don't want to do, that they feel could be automated. Oftentimes your business subject matter experts in a perfect world become your change champions. And I'll just share a quick story about a payroll director who was like, I'm highly automated. Everything is already done, and I don't need a whole lot of automation here. We've already kind of done this. Thank you, but no thank you. And I said, well, just come to our session, right? And we showed her about RPA. We spent 4 hours doing education on what RPA was and what it was capable. And at the end of that 4 hours, she was like, oh my gosh, like this could do so much in my area, right? She took the marker out of my hand, jumped up at the board, and she's like, what about this process? And what about that process, right? She went from somebody in kind of this, I don't want you in here, and transitioned into really one of our biggest change champions. So change champions might not always be a defined role. It could very well come specifically from the business.
Absolutely. So, Michael, how do we advise that our viewers pick a partner to approach their digital transformation?
Awesome question, because it's important. I had the pleasure or displeasure of working with some of the largest companies in the space that might start with a D and end with a period. And I can tell you they're expensive. And what you get for your money is a whole lot of PowerPoint documentation, fluff, pretty pictures, highly processed PowerPoints. And if that's valuable to you, awesome, because there's a lot of those providers out there. Where we're really seeing, people being rated or firms being rated as really value-added implementers are the smaller firms, the firms that can get tactical. You need to find a partner that will take the time to listen to you, to understand where you are in your automation journey, and kind of meet you there. That's not trying to start you somewhere that you're not. Someone that will help you with an investment, like the visioning workshop, right? To help you build that business case that's truly vested in helping you. And I'm not saying that just because I decided to offer that, but somebody that says, all right, we understand, how can we help? Can we do this little thing for you so you have a working robot that you can go show people with your data? That honestly makes an investment in you and your journey, and is genuinely concerned about your success, not just trying to push licensing or products on you. And then finding a business customer within your organization is also important, that's willing to go on this journey with you. So if you're sitting in IT, find somebody who's really a good, maybe a solid user of IPA, so they kind of understand the possibilities of automation, but and then take it to that next level. So it's kind of feeling out a few partners. Try before you buy is always good, right? Find a partner that's willing to do that with you. I don't recommend things like asking the software provider, right? Go to, they're going to tell you whoever gives them a kickback and such, right? You're not going to get good information. Also, it comes down to a relationship thing, and who are the people, and do you like them, and do you want to sit next to them and work on the problem together, and do you believe that they're vested? So it's a people game for sure.
Great. Thank you, Michael. That's the majority of our presentation. I think that we tried to help define what digital transformation is, both as a concept and as as an application. And I think laid out some products and strategies for how you can get started on this journey. So definitely open to any questions, any other topics of conversation. We do have just a handful of minutes, but being that this is the final lesson in the track, we can always spill over. The next thing is the happy hour. That's here at 5, and I imagine back on the main stage. I'm not entirely sure. We are doing RPI Tech Talks every Friday, so these are a little bit more of a technical deep dive than a typical webinar into some specific topics. And of course, you can find more of Michael's wisdom as the Tech Pro Unicorn on techprounicorn.com. Upcoming webinars. So again, the content process automation practice does webinars every first Wednesday. I have a huge backlog on the rpic.com website. We just wrapped up like a 3-month-long series of on-base presentations from our on-base senior consultant, Kaylin Myers. Tons of perceptive content, Infor automation, on-base, Kofax, etc. We have a lot of great presentations on Kofax RPA. So even if you would just like to see a little bit more about what specific RPA tools can do, we have at least 3 different webinars on Kofax RPA. I don't see any other questions, so I think we'll leave it at that. So thank you for joining us today. Thank you, Michael, for sharing with us.
Thank you, John.
And we hope to see all of you soon. Thank you.